I'm Victoria from Biblio Lifestyle, and you're listening to the Reader's Couch podcast, the show that will help you bridge the gap between living a full and busy life to one where you're reading, learning new things, and having fun. In today's episode, I'm so excited to chat with author Sophie Cousens to talk about her novel, The Good Part. In The Good Part, we meet Lucy Young, a 20-something woman living in London who doesn't get the respect she deserves at her job. She's also sick of going on disastrous dates, and she's done with living in a damp flat with roommates who never buy toilet paper. One day, though, Lucy stumbles upon a wishing machine, and she closes her eyes and she makes a wish to skip to the good part of her life, where she has a career she's proud of, she isn't broke, and she's met her soulmate. The next morning, she ends up realizing the machine was real, and she has skipped to 16 years in the future, and she's now in the good part of her life. Readers, I really enjoyed this book, but it's fair to say I'm a bit of a Sophie Cousens fan, as I've read all her books. But this one was a moving, thought-provoking novel that reminds you that the good part in life is really taking it one step and one day at a time. So, if you're looking for a 13 going on 30 meets Freaky Friday novel, then this book is just for you. Now, in the episode, Sophie and I talk more about her book, and we had so much fun playing our own game where we stepped into our very own time machines and we talked about the things we would do and the places we would go if we could go back in time. But before we get into the episode, please leave the podcast a 5-star rating wherever you're listening. Write me a review if you love the show, and share this episode or any of your favorite episodes with your bookish friends. It really helps the show, it doesn't cost a penny, and it really helps to keep me going. So, thanks in advance. And now onto the episode with author Sophie Cousens. Hi readers, welcome again to the Reader's Couch. I'm your host, Victoria Wood, and today I'm so excited to welcome Sophie Cousens to talk about her new book, The Good Part. Sophie, welcome to the Reader's Couch.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on.
Yay, I'm so excited to have you here. Can't wait to talk about your new book, and odds are we're circling back on the others as well. But I just want to know, how are you feeling about The Good Part? It's now available here in the States. How excited are you?
So excited. So yeah, I've come to the US to see my book in bookshops and having a little launch event on Saturday. And it's always just such a thrill to actually see my book in Barnes & Noble or I've been having a little trot around the city trying to find it in bookstops, and the novelty definitely never wears off.
Oh, I love hearing that. That's amazing. Well, your latest, book 4, is entitled The Good Part. Tell readers what they can expect when they pick up a copy. What's your elevator pitch? So
it's kind of my version of the film Big, or 13 going on 30, but rather than a child becoming an adult, it's a 26-year-old woman who wishes to get to the good part of her life and wakes up 42, married with 2 children. So it's kind of touches of magical realism, and it's about sort of getting what you wish, being careful what you wish for. And it's the whole book kind of follows Lucy, who, is very dissatisfied with her life at 26. She's kind of struggling at work, no cash, going on terrible dates. So when she stumbles upon this wishing machine and wishes just to skip to the good part of her life, she then finds out it comes true.
And it sometimes isn't exactly as you imagine it would be, because Lucy jumps ahead to about 16 years in the future. She wakes up in a house she doesn't recognize, a man next to her she has no idea. She also has, the picture perfect children as well. But before Lucy makes this wish and it comes true, she's working in her dream job, but it's not as, she had hoped it would have been. She doesn't get the respect. She's in a flat with roommates who they're not the best, so to say. And of course, dating. That is something I for sure don't, I don't miss that. I don't want to go back to 20s dating. It was horrible. So tell us about Lucy. She's stressed out. She's living in the city. She wants to get to the good part. But before she gets there, before she makes this wish, tell us what's going on in her life.
Yeah, so I think we've all been there where, I think in your mid-20s, you think you're an adult and, life should be beginning to take shape with how you want it to be. But actually, as was certainly the experience for me, you're kind of at the bottom rung of the ladder career-wise. You're still living in flat shares to make, your paycheck last. And often, maybe not the best flatmates. So poor Lucy is living with, inconsiderate flatmates who always steal her cereal and never buy a loo roll and hog the bathroom. So I think that's probably quite relatable to everyone. And also, yes, she's got a job at work she loves. She works in TV, but she's very much kind of making the coffee, which she has been for the last couple of years. And she just thinks she's got a promotion, but then everyone keeps on treating her like the coffee girl. So she's very frustrated on that front. Plus, she's doing various internet dates and just so tired of going on terrible dates with complete rotters. And she just wants to get to the point in her life where she can meet her person, not have to go through all of this, kissing lots of frogs to find your prince. And also where she just knows that it's all going to pay off, all her hard work at work on the career ladder. She just is suddenly doubting, what if I never actually get there? So yeah, life is not great for Lucy at 26. So she's feeling very frustrated.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get to the good part, shall we? So she wakes up 16 years later. She has a husband, Sam, and she's a bit confused on what's going on. And I'm almost sure that he took her to see a doctor. And they're saying, well, you know what? You have some amnesia situation going on. Now, her son, Felix, is the one I love the most, because Felix is thinking, yeah, this woman's strange. She's not from this planet. Let's get her out of here kind of thing. I always think children have this second intuition thing going on. So she's there in this good part of her life, but also she's realizing she has no memory of what it took to get her there. And I think that too is also relatable, where we're in ruts in our lives, different things going on, and we just wish, could we just get to the part where, this all works out and all the effort, it gets paid off. However, I think what Lucy realizes, and something I've certainly realized as we've gotten on with age, is that it is a journey and not necessarily the destination.
Yeah, and I think this is when she wakes up in this strange environment, seemingly married to this man she's never met before. She doesn't actually know what has happened, because obviously it makes more sense that perhaps she has amnesia than that she's magicked herself forward in time. So she really does doubt, and we, as the reader, you're not quite sure either what has happened. And so you're really with Lucy as she's working out what's happened, where is she, what is her life now, what she missed in those years that she can't remember in terms of her career, her friendship, her family. So she's got a lot to catch up on.
Yes, she does. And the one thing I love about your books is it tends to be filled with lots of humor. So readers, you'll see Lucy as she's trying to figure things out, just like technology. I used to always say, I'm so with it. And now I'm that person who's struggling. So, you jump 16 years, I think you'd be struggling too. So there are positive moments, there are funny moments, even some tear-jerking moments, which I absolutely love. So I hope readers will give this one a go. But I'm curious, Sophie, where did the idea come for this novel? I'm guessing, you like me and maybe many of the listeners, we struggled in our 20s as well. What made you decide to put this into a story?
Well, I think, it is quite a personal one. I actually have dedicated this book to my 26-year-old self, which is new. But I definitely relate to that stage of life that Lucy finds herself in. And I sometimes think, what would 26-year-old me think of my life now? Because I am actually 42 and married with 2 children. And it's not autobiographical in any more sense than that. But I think that the difference between being a young adult and being a middle-aged adult is actually as big a contrast in a way as being a child and being an adult, like we see in films like 13 Going on 30. So part of it was like a personal reflection on how much can change in 16 years. But also I think I'm a massive fan of kind of those 90s, early 2000s movies like Freaky Friday and Big and The Family Man, all of which have this touch of magical realism, but to tell quite real stories with quite a lot of heart. And this book was really my chance to have a go at a magical realism story, which is also, it's infused with a lot of romance and friendship and self-discovery. But yeah, I've always hankered after doing a magical realism story.
Well, I think you did an amazing job. This one for sure is a winner. I loved it. And because our main character, Lucy, she jumped 16 years into the future to the good part of her life, I want us to play a game called If You Could Travel in Time. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Yes, let's do it.
Okay, amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some prompts, time travel prompts, and you're just going to let me know if you could travel in time, where would you go, what would you do, and all the good stuff. So are you ready?
Yes.
Alrighty. So first and foremost, if you could travel in time, would you go solo or would you bring someone? And if you're bringing someone, who would you bring?
Ooh, good question. I think I would go solo because I think it'd be quite confusing. If you were with someone, you might want to do different things or explore in different ways or change the course of history. So I think I'd go on my own.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'd go solo too. Now, would you travel to the past or would you go to the future?
I think I would actually like to go to the past. I'd like to go to when, am I going back into my own life or am I just going back in time to like...
You can go back in your own life or time, but I think maybe your own life, because since Lucy wanted to jump to the good part of her own life, yes, would you go in
we're
the past?
We're not going to medieval England, no.
No.
I think I would like to go back and see what my life was like when I was about 7, because I've got a 7-year-old now and I don't have a very good memory. I don't know, I had a wonderful childhood, but my memory is like, my recollection is very limited. I just don't remember very much about that stage of my life. You know, when you see childhood photos and you think you remember it because you've seen the photo, but I would love to see what my life was actually like when I was 7 and the kind of games I was playing and the friendships I had, and see how similar that I was to my daughter, because I don't really have any idea.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. See, I would go back to my past life too, just to kind of, see the things I was doing and so on. But I want to spend more time with my nan. I miss her and I don't have her with me anymore. She's no longer on earth. And I would love to go back to, my childhood self when she was around. Okay.
Yes.
So we're both going back to the past. Interesting. We're both traveling solo. Okay. So I just said I would love to see my nan. What else would you do? Like, are there food you'd like to eat, activities? And also, if you could pinpoint, would you want to immerse yourself into the experiences of that time? Because for me, I'm going back for sure to the 80s.
Yes, exactly. I'd be going back to the 80s. And I think the toys we used to play with, because again, I've got quite limited memory of my kind of favorite toys, but me and my little brother spent hours and hours playing together. I used to put on kind of plays with our animals and he would sort of direct them. And I think this is where both of our love of the arts began. And I would just love to go back and see what kind of stories we were making up at the time. And I moved schools a lot when I was little. So I didn't have a sort of, I think at one point I went to 4 schools in 18 months, not because I was expelled, but because my father was in the army. So we moved around a lot. Yeah. And so I don't remember who else I was kind of friends with at that time. So I'd love to just go back and go to a day at school and see what we were learning and who I was sitting next to and all of that kind of thing.
I love that. So we're sticking to the past because we've committed to that. Is there something you'd like to learn or something you'd like to change?
Ooh, interesting. Learn or change. I don't think I'd want to change anything because I'd be too worried about the kind of
cause and effect.
Cause and effect, exactly, of what kind of changes in the future. And I do think, that would be why I would definitely not want to go forward, because I feel like any knowledge about the future can only be a bad thing, because I think we just have to live our life in quite an unknowing, kind of hopeful way. And if you went forward and knew the consequences of your actions, good or bad, that's just a lot of pressure, isn't it? So I think I wouldn't want to change anything, but I would like to. I think there's something that's so joyful about the way that children play. So I'm going to say that I would like to learn how to be very present in the moment, like a child is, and take that back to my current life.
Yeah, I love that. I would like to ask my nan questions, just more about her life, you know. I think I got the, what do you call it? The child version of things.
Yes.
I would want to know about her life. Like, what was it like when, you know, you graduated high school? Why did you decide to go to college at that time? What did you do after? You know, just not the, you know, what were your dreams that you wanted that maybe, you know, I would just want to learn more, because I think I still have my mom, which I'm blessed and fortunate to have. But it's I'm getting to know my mom now, not as my mom, but just as
an adult.
Yes, as a woman, as a person. And because my nan was just she was always there. She was just a very firm, consistent presence. And I felt like she was raising all of us, including my mom. So it's I would love to learn more. Just learn more about them. Okay, so the next time travel, would you bring someone or anything, like it could be anything physical, back with you to present day? So remember, we're in the past. Would you take something back with you or someone?
Oh, I would, because I remember when I was at school, when I was probably about 12, I got given a dictaphone for my birthday, and me and my friends used to record our own radio shows. So this was obviously before, this was like the height of technology back in the 90s. And I don't know what happened to that dictaphone or all the little tapes that we recorded these little radio shows on, but I would just love to find that and bring it back, because I think it would cause much amusement for me and my friends now if we could listen to those little shows.
You know what's funny? So I have to say, your answer has influenced mine in that I didn't have a radio show, but my sister and I did. You know, we were just talking. We would listen to the music on the radio. We had cassettes, and we'd hit the record. We'd record like bits of like music, but we would then give or take, like, you know, what we thought about the song, like, oh, we love this line so much, or we loved, you know, this particular thing so much. So it wasn't like a show. We were giving commentary now when I think of it.
An early podcast, basically, like a music critique, it sounds like.
So true. And, you know, it was my granddad's radio, and, you know, we knew the time of day he would listen to stuff. And, you know, this is the 90s, so we're listening to people requesting music, you know, just little things. It was a Saturday. I just remember we always did it on a Saturday, because that was the time he would go outside and do his gardening and all those things. So then we had like a solid hour to ourselves in a way, where that particular segment was on. And yeah, we were giving commentary. So I would love to get those cassettes as well.
I know. I wonder whether, like, the equivalent of, so, you know, my children, I don't let them do YouTube videos, but they're desperate to do little YouTube videos of them kind of playing with their frozen dolls and things. And again, I wonder whether, like, fast forward 30 years, if all of those things would still be there, like all of these, you know, children making little videos with their animals on YouTube. Maybe they are more likely to stand the test of time than our cassette players that we had.
For sure. Because they would get corrupted sometimes, and, you know, the floppy drives too. It was just, it wasn't as solid as today.
But then equally, and this is going to make me sound really old, but I also, as much as I miss having some of those records of, you know, I don't have many photos of university even, because that was pre-smartphones and things. You know, you've got the odd thing that you printed out to kind of pronto print. But I think also I feel sorry for this generation that so much of their life is recorded, and, like, you know, bad decisions, bad fashions, bad, like, if you know. Yeah. I think there's a real self-consciousness that has really seeped in, because nothing can be erased or forgotten. And, you know, certainly I remember at university you know, if you thought you'd had a few too many drinks and done something embarrassing, you'd wake up in the morning and your friends would loyally say, oh, no, you were fine. Whereas now I feel like everyone's like, well, it's on Instagram, you being Very embarrassing. So yeah, in some ways, there's plus sides to the fact that all of that technology just kind of evaporated into the annals of history.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I would be mortified at some things of mine. So yeah, I'm happy I don't have everything recorded for sure. Okay, so the last one, and this is a bit of a catch-22 now. Would you want to remember your time travel adventures, or would you be okay with your memory being wiped clean?
So I think going back, I would like to remember, because I think that you would bring something back to the present that could only help you. Those memories are only going to probably be a good thing. As you say, if you've spoken to a grandparent, learned more about them, or like reconnected with your childhood self, I feel like those are positive memories. But as Lucy does, I think if you're going forward, if you then went back, like that was one of the big problems I had with the film 13 going on 30. I don't know if you remember the ending of that, but she, it's not the same as my book, but the initial premise kind of has similarities. But she realizes that her future life, is not great. She's made some bad decisions. She's been not very nice at work or with her friends. And she decides to go back and change everything. But she goes back remembering. And I always just think, how weird would that be she's gone back to age 13 with all the knowledge of sort of who she's in love with, who she's going to end up with, how she needs to live her life for it to end up where she wants it to. Yeah. That kind of self-consciousness would be horrible.
Yeah,
horrible. If you actually try and think of, because it happens in the film in 30 seconds, where you see she doesn't get the guy at the end of the film, but then she goes back, remembers, does it all right. And to live your life knowing where you're trying to end up, and to that loses for me lots of the joy of the unknown, and kind of you've got to learn life as you go and make the mistakes. And that was a big flaw with that film, but I'm sure people will disagree.
I would love to hear what listeners think. No, absolutely. But I agree. I would not want the pressure of, knowing how things would turn out and, coming back. No. Plus, to be fair, I don't think I want to go to the future. I think that's why we both selected the past.
Like, imagine if now, I was just thinking about sort of, my friend group from school, and like, if you say, if you say like, oh, well, one of you's gonna, have a sick child, one of you's gonna get cancer, one of you's gonna get divorced, one of you's gonna be really successful at work. If you were told these predictions of what's going to happen, like it would be paralyzing, and really it would be scary. And I think the unknown, scary as the unknown is, the known would be worse.
I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Sophie, for playing our time travel game.
Very welcome. Those very, very philosophical thoughts for this time of the morning.
I know. But anywho, you have written some beautiful books prior to The Good Part. I mean, this time next year, that was your debut. It was a romantic comedy as well, about two individuals, Minnie and Quinn. Share with our listeners more about that book, just in case they haven't picked up a copy yet.
So yes, that is about Minnie and Quinn, who were born on the same day in the same hospital, 1 minute apart, which that minute then actually played a big role in both of their lives, because the baby who was born first was the first baby of the 90s and won some prize money, which is obviously quite a life-changing amount of money. So the story starts on their 30th birthdays, where they run into each other again, and Minnie sort of works out who Quinn is and says, "You're the person who stole my name, stole my fortune, stole my luck." So it's kind of a bit of an enemies to lovers. It's all about kind of family and superstition, and also kind of narratives that get passed down. I think Minnie's been told since she was born that she missed out and she was unlucky, and that she had her name stolen, and how that kind of family legend affects your outlook on your life and yourself. So yeah, that's a very special place in my heart, that book, because it was the first one that I wrote, and it's had lots of people really like it and say nice things about it. So yeah, I love that story.
Yay. I really love that one too. But then also book 2, Just Haven't Met You Yet. That one was incredibly fun as well, because it centers someone who finds a lost suitcase, and it just sends her on a journey as she sets out to obviously return the suitcase and all the good things. Tell us about Just Haven't Met You Yet.
Yeah, so I think some book ideas take a little time to percolate and grow, and some kind of land in your head fully formed. And I'd say Just Haven't Met You Yet and The Good Part both landed in my head fully formed. And the premise of that is that, yeah, Laura goes to the Channel Islands. She's researching, which is where I live. I live in Jersey, and she's researching her family history, but she picks up the wrong case at the airport. And when she opens it, in the contents, she finds everything she's looking for in a man, and she decides that she's in love with the person who owns the suitcase, and she's going to track him down. He's reading her favorite book. He's got music from her favorite musician, and yeah, so it's a really nice kind of adventure looking for love and about serendipity, and it's also a bit of a love story to the island of Jersey, which the island's very much a character in the story, and it was quite fun to do that because I have a lot of affection for the place, and to put in all the places and beaches and locations that I know was fun.
Oh, that's amazing. And then, of course, book 3, which was quite a bit scary, if I'm being honest, when I first read that premise, which is Before I Do, which asks the question, what would you do if the one person that got away turned up the night before your wedding? I'm like, that's a bit much.
Yeah, I always try and think of really horrible situations to put my protagonists in, to be fair, and that's probably the worst. As in, you show your character when the chips are down. And yeah, poor Audrey, she's about to get married, and yeah, the night before her wedding, a guy that she had this one amazing day with 6 years previous, but she'd lost touch with him and never saw him again. And he ends up coming to the wedding as a +1. And I really set out with this book to write a love triangle where you really didn't know who was going to be the one she chose in the end. I love a love triangle, but often I find you read them and you kind of know who you're supposed to be rooting for. Mm-hmm. And I think with this one, what I loved about it is that people who have read it have said, oh, I really, really didn't know until, more like 70% of the way through who she was going to choose. And that just was really, and so it's quite an infectious stress to the reader, I think, of like really not knowing who she should be picking. Or whether she should be getting married.
Yes. I love that description, infectious stress.
There's a lot of infectious stress in my books, actually, I think. Like even in the good part, like I hope, but funny infectious stress. But yeah, some readers have said, oh, I was really stressed reading that because I really did feel like I was going through it too. Which
yes.
I'll take as a compliment to the writing, but also hopefully not too stressed.
No, absolutely. We are sucked in. We're invested in these characters. So yeah, you're a bit stressed. But that's a good stress for sure. So 4 books in, Sophie. Looking back, if you could tell your younger self anything, what would you tell her?
I think I would tell myself to keep on writing, because I think there's been stages in my life where I've always wanted to be a writer, and I was, writing stories when I was 9, probably just about nonsense and reading them out to my family. But I've gone through periods of self-doubt and rejection, as every reader has. The first novel I wrote got roundly rejected. And I think each time I had an experience like that, it took me a while to kind of pick myself up and go, no, okay, try again. And I wish, I've improved so much as a writer in the 4 years that I've been doing this as a job, because the only way you learn is to do it and to, write and fail and know how you can do things better. And I kind of wish I'd written more in my 20s, where I didn't necessarily have the confidence that I knew it was all going to turn out okay. I wish I'd kept more journals so I actually could remember some of the stuff I'd done in my 20s when I'm now trying to look back. So yeah, write. That would be what I would tell my younger self. Don't worry about failure. Just keep doing it.
Just keep doing it. I love that. Okay, so let's get into your reading life, because even though we're here to chat about the good part and we kind of just, in a roundabout way talked about your other books as well, we want to know what you're reading. So share with our listeners the last book that you finished reading that you'd now recommend.
So probably the last book that I finished reading that I really would recommend is, I love Varu McFarlane's books, and Between Us, I listened to it on an audiobook recently. I think she's that, for me, is that perfect marriage between romance, women's fiction, but also her books always have a slightly more serious theme. And her sense of humor just, she's another British kind of rom-com writer, but all of her jokes kind of really tickle me, and I think she's definitely got the same sense of humor as me. So I always recommend her books.
Yeah, I love Amari McFarlane too. What would you say was your favorite childhood book that you can remember?
So yeah, childhood books is more difficult because when I was a little child, like I remember my father particularly was always very good at reading kind of books with all the voices. He would always be very good at reading we used to have this series. I don't know if you have it in the States, but it's called like the Teddy Bear Baker and the Teddy Bear, and so I have a real memory of being read to by my father, who had a really good reading voice. So I think like a lot of books I have a lot of affection for because I remember the kind of narration. But in terms of sort of slightly specific books that I really remember, it's not so much childhood, but reading Harry Potter as a teenager, I do remember that experience of reading where you just wanted to read the next chapter and you just wanted to stay up. And that when those books came out and you were so excited, it was sort of, you would have queued round the corner at the bookshop to get the next one. And that was the first experience I'd had really like that, where the real excitement of reading just catches you like a virus in the best possible way. So those books I have a lot of affection for.
Yep, those books were infectious indeed. I do remember people queuing up, and I also remember just friends sharing them at school. So yeah, for sure. What books are you looking forward to reading in the year ahead?
Well, actually, I have not read a lot of romantasy. This is the new terminology. I've been out of practice. I tend to read either other rom-com books or I listen to a bit slightly more literary books on audiobook. And I haven't made room in my life for romantasy books. And I've heard so much about Iron Flame. Is it Iron Flame? Yes. The new Rebecca Yarros book.
Yes.
That I'm like, I have to read it. I'm going to have to like dip in and find out what all of the fuss is about. So that's my mission for this year. I'm gonna dip my toe in the romantasy genre.
Love it. That's awesome. So some of our listeners on the show, they're avid readers who sometimes fall into a reading slump from time to time. But we also have folks who are trying to get back into reading. They're just struggling to find the time. What advice would you give to these two readers? One who's in a slump and one who's struggling to get back into it.
I mean, I would say that I think what's really good is obviously on Amazon Kindle, you can try out the first chapter or so, as in for free. You can go on and look ahead and you can read the first chapter of a book for free. And I would say, go and read the first chapter of a load of things and just buy the one that grabs you. Because I think there's a lot of times you buy a book and then you feel like you have to finish it because you've bought it and it's not, it's fine, but it hasn't really, really grabbed you. But I think that feeling of a book really grabbing you is so wonderful. Try out 10 and pick the one that does. So that's how I'd say to get out of a reading slump.
Yeah.
And in terms of making the time, again, I'm terrible at this because, it's always easier to scroll on your phone and watch Instagram and, watch TV. And then you end up going to bed and feeling like you've just had junk food. Whereas if you read a book, you feel like you've had a really nutritious meal. So I would say get Instagram on a timer so that you can't be on it in the evening, or leave your phone downstairs and just, make that hour when you're in bed, dedicate it to reading, and just tell yourself you're not going to be on your phone scrolling, which I know is easier said than done, but that's the best way for me. That's the best way to get, make time for books.
Absolutely. So on the show, we also love indie bookstores. So share with our listeners some of your favorite indies.
Well, my favorite at the moment in America is going to have to be the Rip Bodice, because I'm doing an event there on Saturday. And anyone I know who, they might not have been able to come to it, but you can get a signed copy of any of my books if you order from the Rip Bodice, because I'm going to go and sign a load of books when I'm there. And in the UK, I have to say, Mr. B's Reading Emporium in Bath is one of my favorite. It's a really special bookshop. And again, I've left lots of book plates there. So anyone in the UK listening, you can get a signed book from Mr. B's in Bath.
Love Mr. B's. Okay, so getting back to your book and kind of wrapping things together, again, I know you've done your job. You've written the book, you've given us the good parts, but what are you hoping readers in an ideal world might think or feel after they've turned the last page?
I've had a lot of people read it so far and say, it has really made them reflect on their own life in terms of whatever stage you're at. I hope you're going to get something out of this book, whether you're 26 and wishing to skip to the good part, or whether you're a bit older and looking back and reflecting on how life has changed. I really hope it will give everyone just a moment's pause to kind of enjoy the present and take stock of what the good part of their life is, which sounds really cheesy, but I think that those books that make you feel a little bit happier about the world, when there's so much honestly bleak, horrible things happening. I think we all need a little moment of joy and being grateful for what we do have.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Sophie, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for listening to the Reader's Couch podcast. Please subscribe to the show, share it with a friend, and take a few seconds to leave a rating and review. Until next time, stay lounging, stay reading, and whenever you're in doubt, go straight to your local bookstore or library. Thanks again for listening, and happy reading.